Hi, everyone. Welcome to my weekly live Empowered Consent Conversations. I'm Christina McCabe, your relationship and sex coach with a focus on the erotic blueprints, consent, and helping my clients speak their authentic desires. It is my absolute joy to bring you these empowered consent conversations every single week. Well, most weeks. I'll skip one now and again, depending. But we're gathering with different sex and intimacy and relationship experts to bring you topics to explore, to create consent in your life in a way that really gets you heard and understood and fulfilled. These conversations, we are exploring consent with a focus on it being exciting, healing, inspiring, and a doorway for deeper intimacy and connection with yourself and with others. Today, we're gathered to talk about empowered consent and difficult reveals. I'm joined by this week's gorgeous guest expert, Julia Bigjoy. It was advertised that Gina Garris was going to be joining us, but it looks like they are off grid and out of power. So unfortunately, maybe we'll get their voice heard another time. Really excited to get Julia on the conversation today, however, and I'll invite them on to introduce themselves in just a moment. But first, I want you to take a look at the description above where you will find Julia, Gina as well, and my contact information and a YouTube link to watch past forum replays. Go ahead and subscribe so you get notified when I go live or when I post something new. Also, we really love you to be involved here. So feel free to ask questions or make comments via the chat, and I will monitor them to get you heard if I am able. If you write me a novel as a comment, I'm not going to read the whole thing, though, just so you know. But I'd love you to be heard. So write what you want, and I'll share what I can. Right after this meeting, also this evening, I'm hosting a watch party. It's the first one tonight, date night, to watch the new Netflix series, Sex, Love, and Goop Together. Be sure to see the link in the description. And to join that conversation, you can check out more. Stay around at the end for me to let you know a little bit more about what that's going to look like. All right. And at the end, the resource roundtable, if Julia would like to, they will let you know a little bit more about how you can work with them as well. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to get Julia on here to introduce themselves. Hi, Julia. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's a real joy to be here with you. And big love to Gina Garris. We hope your power comes on. And as everybody probably knows, Gina Garris is phenomenal. Very, very excited to hear what they have to say at some point when power is back in the picture.
Yes. And I will definitely, I know they wanted this conversation, so we'll bring them back on at another time when it feels in alignment. But I know you and I are going to have a lot of fun exploring because this is a super juicy topic. And I'm really excited to get your voice heard on this platform for the first time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm psyched. It's such a good topic. Yeah. You want to hear a little about like who I am?
I would love that.
Awesome. Cool. Well, so I am Julia. Pleased to meet you all, and yay for being here with good friends. And all my life, like since I was a small child, I've always been just like very interested in sex and pleasure and learning about sex and kinky things and all that jazz. And then so that was me, pretty much all my life. Then I realized I was queer in college, which was like kind of a big inflection point for me, a big realization. And a little bit more about like who I am and how I came to be doing this work, I guess, is like I always felt like I was having great sex, but still there was so much more in my imagination than there was in my reality. And so a big part of my own journey was like, learning Jaya's erotic blueprints for sure. And then kind of coming to understand, like this whole like feeling safe in your body thing, like maybe that's useful. I didn't even know that was a thing. Then coming to realize like how much I was actually kind of like maybe denying and repressing some stuff, which, like that happens, right? And from that coming to like acknowledge my own desires even at a deeper level. And that's the funny thing. Like I didn't realize that there were things that I wasn't acknowledging and celebrating, but there were. So doing that, then really figuring out how to advocate for those desires without shame, and then making communication and negotiation and consent feel really like pleasurable, which is why I'm so psyched about this series, because I know you're all about that. Um,
Mhm.
and some of the things that got me to that point are basically the things that I use with folks, plus also really good therapy. Big fan of really good therapy when you can get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Mm.
And I guess in terms of, the sort of, credentials and things, like, I sort of fun, non-sexy tidbit, I have an undergraduate degree in astronomy and astrophysics, which is fun and science is cool. Um,
Yes.
and a master's in library and information studies. And then I have a lot of, smattering of certifications and trainings in this particular realm, which are broadly in somatic sexuality, in communication and consent, in kink, some trauma modalities, and processes for finding your own wisdom. Because I think, Christina, you would probably agree, and I'm sure Gigi would too, that like kind of what we're doing here is helping other people orient to their own deep inner wisdom, power, joy, love, sexual creativity, and all that jazz.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. And you are in perfect alignment with this platform. Thank you. Not that everyone has to be in alignment to be a voice, everyone. So, but I love where you're coming from, Julie, and I'm really appreciative that you're here. Thank you. I
Oh, thank
deeply resonate with a lot of what you talked about finding, knowing there was more, realizing how much you needed that safety in your body and in your expression. So much of that resonates with my own story as well. Mhm. And with a lot of people that I work with. I hear that. Yeah. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, right on.
Yeah. Well, those of you watching, we're talking today about empowered consent and difficult reveals. So we always like to start these off by asking first and foremost, what is empowered consent?
Yeah, well, to me, and I love the way you phrase that. I feel like it's such an intelligent like addition to just the concept of consent, because if consent is like, do I consent to this thing? Am I a full yes to this thing or not? I feel like empowered consent is like that consent, but motivated and supported by like deep self-knowledge and a sense, like an
Mhm.
empowered sense of like knowing what the options are.
Mhm.
And especially like seeing ways to have options that are, you know, that are good. I guess to put it, simply.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, one of the common themes that runs through this, everybody's answer to this question, all the different guests who have been on here over the last couple of years now, is that deeper inner knowing, that sense of agency, you know, that we really need to have a deeper awareness of ourselves in order to give empowered consent or to say no, right? Or I need more information, but to engage in that conversation, that deeper part of knowing yourself, that agency is a really important aspect. Mhm. Yeah. I always like to add too, and those of you that watch these, I always do, because I like this to be a conversation. And generally, I mean, we have conversations with ourselves, but we often have conversations around consent and empowered consent with others. And so I want to make sure that not only am I deeply tapped into my own inner knowing, but I'm holding a safe enough space for others to speak their truth to me as well, so that my own agenda or my own reactivity is not such that others don't feel that they can speak their truth to me. I like to make sure that in my definition of empowered consent, both places really come into the picture. Yeah. And then we move on to defining our topic for our audience. What are difficult reveals? What does that mean? What are we talking about? So many things.
Yeah, that's a rich one. My goodness.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
what I think of when you say that is a realization that you come to for yourself or that you share with other people, where either it's hard to get to the point. I know I've certainly, had reveals that are difficult for me to have within myself.
Yeah.
Um, or where the consequences of revealing it, maybe it's just a practical logistical thing, you're totally at peace with it within yourself, but revealing it may have consequences that feel intense or scary, or there's a certain risk there. And my sense is that these can be around anything from a reveal where there's a stigma potentially attached to it, so that carries some risk or intensity around it. It could be revealing a mistake or a breach of integrity. That is certainly a difficult to reveal often. Could be any form of coming out that might happen, that can certainly be difficult. It could be expressing something that's true about your own self, in general, especially when it's like a thing that perhaps one damps down to be more palatable to other people. Can be a difficult reveal about, like, well, this is my value. This is something that I think is ethically important, and I'm going to be standing up for that value in this moment. And it can be something like revealing that you want something, or something that has happened that maybe upsets or triggers your partner or partners. And it could be a difficult thing to reveal that you are, in fact, the upset partner, like that, like, I love that value you have of holding the space so that other people can be their authentic selves with you. And sometimes we can't. Like, I've had moments where, like, I'm like, I can't hold this particular thing without getting a little freaked out right now. And especially when we want to be that, like, smooth, solid ground of holding, that can be a difficult reveal, saying, hey, not living up to the ideal here, and that is also okay. And I need a moment. And of course, it can be revealing a kink.
Yes, or a shame, right? Or a desire that you're afraid if you reveal, you may not be met, or something vulnerable about us. And I also want to just give to people, I mean, we may talk about a lot of different things that feel like, quote unquote, the big reveals, right? And a lot of what you said really spans so much of what I think about with the difficult reveals. But I really want to point out too that anything that causes that contraction, it makes it hard to speak, may be a difficult reveal. And it may be the most simple thing. It may be at the grocery store, right? Asking for a little more space. It may be at dance class. It may be anywhere in your day-to-day walking through life. It may be someone wanting to give a hug and you say no. It may be the things that seem like intellectually should be simple and easy to say, and yet your body contracts and your voice closes down and it's difficult to say. Yeah, I want to just acknowledge that for people, because sometimes our nervous systems respond to things in that way that shuts us down without an intellectual understanding of why. And if it's difficult, then some of the tools or tips or the awareness that we bring forward here may still apply, even if intellectually it doesn't seem like it should be. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll applaud for that.
Next, so what do you want? What do you want people to know about InPowered Consent and Difficult reveals?
Oh, goody, goody, goody. Such a fun thing, right? I have, like, maybe, I think, 4-ish points there.
Right.
One is that it's really worth it to make those difficult reveals, at least to yourself. Like, it can be really worth it to do that. Of course, within consent with yourself, because you may not be, ready to, like, face some truths, like, in a, kind of ways, like, maybe not.
Yeah.
Unless you're into that, like, go for it if you're into it. But it can be really worth it to face those difficult reveals within yourself. And really worth it to see and kind of understand, what are the things that make that difficult within myself? Like, what are the fears? What are the worries? What are the concerns? What are the, well, if that's true, like, what does this mean about me? If that's true, what does it mean about my environment? If that's true, what does it mean about my past? Those things can get pretty intense.
Yeah.
And like, if I think I would feel great if more people, like, were aware or had the feeling that, like, you can kind of come to a safe landing. Like, you can hold that in self-compassion and love and acceptance.
Yeah.
It take work. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm. But worth it, like you
Yeah.
said.
In
And
my humble opinion, yes.
yes. And when it comes to consent, right? Because difficult reveals can go through all different areas of relationship with self and others, right? But when it comes to consent, empowered consent, how important are these? What do we want people to know how important these are? I mean, the Consent Academy, who y'all, if you haven't checked out the Consent Academy online yet, go to their website. They're nonprofit. They offer so much good information, lots of classes. They're just amazing. But they say that to give consent, you need to have the capacity, information, agency, and the ability to give honest and authentic answers without coercion or undue influence. And for me, what lands there, a lot of that lands, but what lands there for me is information. Because I need to have the information. If someone's asking for my consent and they're not giving me a difficult reveal that would offer me the awareness that I need to make that choice for myself, then I don't feel like I have everything I need for that consent.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So when it comes to consent, there's areas in which it feels critical to speak. What do
Yeah.
you think about that, Julia?
Yeah, the information point, I think in particular, is really important, and also it can get a little fraught. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, I think like an example that comes to my mind immediately is like, maybe there's a conversation with a potential partner and things are looking pretty good. But maybe this person like didn't tell you that they're with somebody else as well.
Right,
And maybe that's relevant information. And maybe you have, maybe you don't want to be with people who are with other people, or maybe you want to be with
right,
people who are with other people only if you're very certain that all the other people are on the same page,
right,
or all that jazz.
right.
It could be any number of permutations. And I feel like determining which information is relevant is not always a cut and dried thing.
I absolutely agree. And
Yeah.
that's where this gets a little difficult, right? Yeah, the exploration of that.
Yeah.
So what is cut and dry? Are there specific shoulds?
Ooh. Ooh.
Haha, or have
No.
to?
Oh gosh. I mean, I feel like there are specific shoulds, and I don't know if I have a good list of those, honestly. Because I feel like I in an ideal world, we would probably all like have our own set of shoulds,
Yeah.
based on all of the values that we have.
Mhm.
Um, like, oh gee. Oh gee. I mean, anything that goes into a consent discussion or consent negotiation, really, like,
Mhm.
um, I'm thinking of, um, am I going to consent to flog this person? Like, well, do they have particular, for example, if I were invited to flog somebody who had maybe some like very significant like joint pains or like stuff on their body that was really complicated, like I do not have the best hand-eye coordination, so like that would be relevant information for me because I might not be able to like just hit this particular area because
Right.
lots of enthusiasm, not a whole lot of like practice yet.
Mhm.
um so yeah, I feel like that is ideally kind of like the shoulds, I think ideally would come through a mutual discussion with the person that you're having the consent discussion with.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think what comes to me as we're talking about this is that it feels relevant for me to spend some time knowing what my desired information is
Mm,
in different situations. And I might not know that I need all the information, right? So I'd like to know this, and this, right? Those are the things that I know for myself I need to know in order to make a decision. But other information may come in and I'll go, oh, yeah, I should have asked about that. Or maybe I wanted to know that. Or, maybe someone gives me information and I realize that really wasn't as relevant as I thought it was. But either way, for me to come empowered is to take some time to drop into my own self and say, what do I think I'm going to need here?
mm.
If I know I'm stepping into a consent conversation around a certain experience.
Yeah, I love that.
Mm.
And also, I mean, one of the beautiful things about consent is it can be revoked. It can be
Yes.
very fun.
Yes.
And, like, I mean, I think we've all probably had experiences where we thought we were clear, we thought we hit up all the shoulds, all the
Right.
points, and then something comes up along the way, especially if this is, like, a longer term kinda interaction, and then
Yes.
it's like, "Whoa, I never thought to ask about that. Things are different now."
Right. Yeah.
Which
Or it may be, if I'm gonna have a new lover, there tend to be a few things that I like to let them know, right? About me, about my dating status, about my sexuality, about my safe sex practices, right? There's some things that I just generally like to let people know.
Mhm.
But there might be a lover that comes up where I've given all the information I think is relevant, but later they say, "Oh, why didn't you tell me this?" Right? Because they needed more than what I thought. So it's always kind of this fluid conversation where we need to keep talking to each other.
Yeah, agreed.
I would say that I think such things as STIs are relevant when it comes to sexuality. What are your safe sex practices,
Mhm.
right? Those are things if that may be difficult to say, but it also may be difficult to ask for, right?
Yeah.
Because well, go ahead.
Oh, so and I was just gonna say, I would love to hear all of your thoughts about that. I think that that's super important, and that's one of those places where, like, it's nice to feel like there is, there is a shared culture of understanding around what those particular risks are and how they may be different for different people and how different people really, really can make different choices around that and
Mhm.
be valid in their different choices, but it is a nice thing to have a shared culture where you're like, okay, yes, this particular conversation, this one, like it should be had, regardless of what the participants are, it should be had.
Right. Yeah. And in certain medical situations, there shoulds, right? In parenting, there may be shoulds in different aspects, in different relationships as we move through life. Empowered consent is not only about sexuality, is it? It's all areas, so many different areas in life. So, gosh, we can say shoulds, but my shoulds may be different from yours.
As they should be. Sorry.
Love it. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
How?
oh, go for
No,
it, go for it.
please give
Oh,
it to
oh, oh, thank you. Thank you, Christina. No, well, what you're talking about there brings me to mind of one of the other sort of, like, important points, which
me.
I think is, like, rupture and repair skills are pretty important. Like,
Mm.
difficult reveals bring up they bring up hard things, and sometimes, like I said, like, that can be because something kinda may have gone wrong in the past, or it could just be because of a fear of something happening because of the reveal, which also is valid, and that does
Mhm.
happen. So, yeah, I think the more we can go into these kinds of conversations, um,
Mhm.
with the idea that, like, rupture happens and then
Yeah.
ideally repair can happen too, the better. And,
Mhm.
like, the more we're able to feel like we are empowered within ourselves to
Mhm.
know what a repair might look like for ourselves and to be able to ask for that, the better as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and that might look different in different arenas, right? What we need for that repair, and even the same violation from two different people, I might need something different. But and then there's the reveal again. Is it difficult for me to ask for what I need from the repair? So it goes on both sides. It may be difficult to admit that you've made a violation, that you've violated integrity in some way. It also may be difficult then to ask for what you need around that.
Agreed, yeah. I'm interested in how you said that you may actually have different needs, like, for the same situation for 2 different people. Do you have any examples of that?
Well, it's interesting. I just was on a poly dating online event held by Leveled Up Love. Y'all check out Leveled Up Love on Facebook. They're also on a great website. They hold lots of different events. They're super fun. So I decided I've never done an online dating, so I thought I would go to this. And one of the things that I said there is that I often like to let relationships unfold in the way that they want to, because each person and me have the potential. It's like creating a piece of art, right? We have the potential for our relationship to be something so individual, and the potential of that is unlimited unless we define it and put it in a box. So I say that just because that's where I come from, is that what I feel and need from one person, what we've developed together, impacts maybe what I would need as a repair from that person, as compared to another, the energy that we've created together and the involvement we have with each other. And this is both within dating relationships or friendships or work relationships, right? Each individuated relationship that I have may have a different need from that person, depending on so many things: the length of time we've been in relationship, the level of trust we've already had developed or don't have, are there past violations already? Are there other repairs that have not been made, or said would be made and haven't? Have I violated trust in that relationship? I mean, there's so many different things in each individuated relationship that can really impact what I might need from that person.
I love that. Yeah. That's such a beautiful, almost like it explodes the should of it. Like, yes, there are some shoulds. Some shoulds are very useful, but like,
Right.
yeah, like every situation is pretty unique. And who's to say, like, oh, you're asking for too much, or you should be asking for more, in terms of what kind of repair you need for that.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah. For you, how does that land?
You said so much. Can you help me hone in on
Yeah. Yeah, well, why don't we move forward? Because we have a lot we're talking about here. And I'm really curious as well when it comes to these dynamics between us and the things that we should reveal or shouldn't reveal, or I think we initially went there because we were talking about, is it difficult to ask for the support we need from each person, right?
Nice. Yeah.
Right. But then there's often so many different levels of power dynamics within relationship as well. And how does that impact our ability to speak these difficult reveals
Oh,
or
hot.
receive them, right?
Oh, say that again. What was that?
Or receive them.
Yeah. Oof. Ha. Yeah. Well, I have a particular perspective on power dynamics that it will not be shared by everybody. My perspective is that, like, it's a really good idea to not get like sexually involved or romantically involved with people when there are like already pretty significant power dynamic differences. And I respect that not everybody feels that way, but for me, if it were me, that's like one of the ways that I like to address that.
Yeah.
Gosh, but yeah, that also makes me think something. Some of you may know Siddiqui, right? Something Siddiqui once said to me, I think the one time I was speaking with her, was you don't. It was in the context of visibility, like you don't. How to phrase it? It was powerful. Like, you don't owe everybody your whole truth all the time. Like you don't. Like, you can keep some stuff inside. And I think that the case when there are power dynamics that complicate things, it's great when even with the power dynamics, you can say, like, hey, here's a thing that's true and it's hard to say, but like, I'm saying it. But I think it's also really good and important to acknowledge that sometimes we're not able, or we're not ready, or the risk doesn't feel like, oh yeah.
Yeah, that's such a good point, right? Not everything that feels difficult to say needs to be said.
Yeah. Sometimes it's even enough to just hold it within yourself.
Yeah. And power dynamics, though, aren't just in sexual relationships, right? Power dynamics and difficult reveals don't necessarily just land in sexual relationships. I mean, think about at the doctor's office, or with a coach or a counselor, or with a boss or somebody that's in a position financially, has a financial stake over you, right?
Mm,
So there's lots of places where there might be something that you need to say to this person, like your doctor,
yeah.
that's hard for you to say, but absolutely critical for your care to be what you need it to be.
Yeah.
Right?
Gosh, that's a good point. Yeah. I know that not everybody has like access to a ton of choice about what medical care they have available to them. I feel like that makes it a lot easier. Like if there's like, for example, suppose you need to tell your practitioner that you might need an STI test for something in particular,
Mhm.
or you think you might have, like I saw something on my genitals like a few months ago and I was like, what is that?
Yeah.
And I'm lucky I've got a great doctor that, I can talk
Yeah.
to. But even with this great doctor I can talk to, I mean, I'm reflecting on my own experience. Like there's a little moment of like, I would like to talk to you about a thing that, might feel a little, I don't know if you're gonna judge me.
Right.
Yeah. And I would wish for everybody that um before making uh that difficult reveal, everybody would have like a backup plan, or like would have the support to have something available. Like, oh, like if, this medical practitioner um, starts to say things that feel really harmful, like I can switch to this other one.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
think that, yeah, the determination of what to do when that isn't as easy is a bit harder.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think I would offer to those viewing this also to, if you know that there are areas where there are power dynamics and there's something that you needs to be said, to see how you can find the support that you need in place in order to say the things that you need to say, right? Maybe that's another person. Maybe that's an email prior to the visit where it's written out. Maybe you just need to say it to someone that feels safe before you say it to the person in the power dynamic. Maybe you need to sing it in the tune of your favorite song just to make it feel fun and playful, right? I mean, find what it is that you need in order to express yourself in those areas where power dynamics may make it even more difficult for you to speak your voice.
I think that's such a great list. Yes.
Anything to add?
Um, I think that when it comes to practical things, that sounded amazing to me.
Mm,
When it comes to like inner support for that kind of thing,
mm,
I'm a big fan of finding the place in your body
mm.
where I'm trying to think how to actually articulate this in words. Like find the place in your body where there's space to catch you on the other side of making the reveal.
Ah,
Like,
wow, that's so yummy.
yeah,
Say
yeah,
more if you want to. I'd love to hear more.
yeah. I guess this is coming to me as just sort of like an imagine this thing happens and what it could be like.
Yes, let's
Um,
go that journey. I like it.
cool. So imagine you're about to make a difficult reveal to your medical care practitioner.
Yes.
You're not sure how they're going to take it. You are doing all those awesome things that Christina just mentioned. Maybe you're sending an email beforehand. You're
Mhm,
uh, having a friend maybe come with you or like be on standby on the phone. Maybe they could be on like a video call with you in the doctor's
mhm,
office
mhm,
if that feels easier. Um, so that's, I think, great preparation. And what I'm thinking of for that place inside you to hold you is almost like it's like a combination of aftercare for yourself for doing
mhm,
this thing that you believe you expect is going to stretch you, and like preemptive self-love.
mhm.
Um, I could imagine it as like you like sprout up images of your own like your cheerleaders or something like within your chest, like maybe all gathered around your heart that are going to be like, yeah, like if it were me,
You
like,
got
yeah,
this.
Julia, you know what? I don't care what that doctor said. Like what's what. Uh,
You're
okay,
gonna get the sprinkles showered on you as you walk out the door because you have spoke your truth or whatever it is.
right.
It's that aftercare. I love that, Julia. Yeah. What do we need for aftercare as well? hmm
Yeah.
I think building resilience, and this is again a practical thing, building resilience also, like if you know that the areas in your life that are the big ones are really difficult, can we start with the smaller ones? Can we start titrating our nervous system a little bit? Can we start speaking in areas that feel a little bit contracted or difficult, just to build that kind of that resilience and let ourselves know that we can be safe, that we can be heard first, so that when we have to go into those really more difficult ones, that we already have a little bit of a foundation laid for ourselves.
Yes. Oh, resilience is a good topic. Have you already done one of these on resilience and empowered consent?
No, but I think we should.
Oh
I
my
love
God,
it.
yes.
Write it down.
Yes, please, please do. Oh, I love that. And
Uh-huh.
yeah, one of the things I love about like building resilience
Yeah.
is I don't know. Some of us, I think, can have this idea that building resilience means, like training video, running up the stairs, like open more and more iron, like um,
Yeah.
which it totally
And
can be.
yes, that can be one way. Yes.
Right, yeah, it can be that. I find that sometimes resilience is also like releasing the tight grip, or for
Mm.
me, especially since I have my way of avoiding things apparently in my psyche has been a lot of like, oh, denial. Like, what thing? I don't experience hard emotions. But
Oh, right.
so part of the building resilience can be like coming, for example, for my case, like coming back into the body and coming into the whatever the thing that feels like you need to be resilient about, like the emotional state or the physical state that you feel like you need to be resilient about or
Mhm.
around,
Mhm.
um, and just accepting that as it is, as it shows up. If there's
Mhm.
fear, being like, hey, fear, I see you. You're valid. I got you. Come
Right?
here. Or
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah,
Or
just
shame.
witnessing.
Oh,
Mhm.
sorry. Go for it. Go for it.
No, just witnessing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Witnessing and holding. I like sometimes when I have shame come up, it's like a puppy. It's like a shame puppy. And it's like it's like a very small dog, with a very sort of trembly puppy,
Wow.
like with a pokey out tail that's like it's like
Oh,
so
your
I
sweet little shame puppy. Yeah.
come here, shame puppy. Come here, let me snuggle you, shame
Yeah.
puppy. So yeah, like that I think is another good way to resilience, to be like,
Mhm.
what's there? Like,
Mhm.
am I gonna snuggle the shame puppy? Like, am I gonna like pump some iron? And then like, I mean, heck, if you pump some iron and that's part of your resilience, like, maybe go into like, making out with your bicep, I mean, I think that's always a solid move for anybody. Um,
Yeah, I was just going to ask, can we use pleasure to build resilience?
I think so.
One of my very favorite things.
I love it. Yes. Do
Yeah.
tell.
Well, I mean, isn't a lot of it for me is about coming into the body, right? I mean, how do we let our nervous system know that we're safe? How do we make our bodies safe spaces for us? How do we bring that deeper inner knowing that we were talking, that agency that we were talking about? And some of the fastest ways to repattern neurology that feels unsafe is to be playful, is to go into pleasure, right? Is to go into relaxation, is to release those feel good hormones, right? So, if the more we're doing that, the more we're letting our body step out of that constant stress, fight or flight stage that so many of us are in these days, the more we're going to be capable to build resilience. And we'll be building the kind of resilience of a softened, sweetened, nurtured nervous system.
Mhm.
Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, I love that way of putting it. I love that way of putting it.
Mm.
And I feel like I've heard a number of therapists. I don't know if anybody here knows Marty Stanley, who is very, very cool. But Marty sometimes talks about about that, like a like being trauma informed is super important, but also like pleasure is pretty critical when it comes to nervous system stuff, trauma stuff. And oh, my brain went to a place.
Mm. Mine does it all the time.
Thank you. I feel so like loved and held in that. Let
Yeah.
me see. We're talking about pleasure as a way of building resilience. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Um, yeah, it's like I've heard people describe like, going into like the hard stuff, like, doing like the thing, addressing the things, looking at the monster under the bed.
Yeah.
Um, which of course my brain is like, hey, monster, like, hey,
Yes.
can I get in there with you? Anyway,
Right.
but yeah, so there's like that's an important thing to do, but also there's the other side. I think if we sometimes going so deeply into the hard things, which can sometimes be very necessary, but going
Yeah.
so much into the hard things, it's like we can forget about the things that are on the other side if we
Right.
don't take steps to cultivate them and to cultivate the pleasure that is there. And then we can get this cool thing where the pleasure uh, zigs and zags back and forth between like the pain sometimes, and you may find yourself like sobbing hysterically and also like laughing and like feeling really good and really bad at the same time. Which
Yeah.
yeah, so but I totally agree. And one, I guess, little example from my life, my dad died a couple almost 2 years ago now, and
Mm.
it was somewhat sudden, although he was sick, and I loved my dad a lot. So I was pretty upset. There's a
Yeah.
lot of grief, obviously,
Yeah.
and somebody was like, feel that grief, like don't just label it grief and accept that as what's there, like really feel the texture, the quality of it. And what I really realized was that the grief felt like love, like
Mm.
in a very real sense, like that active kind of like this just happened like a month or two ago, like
Mm.
um it felt kind of like that limerancy period of falling in love where maybe
Mm.
you're sort of like like a little bit fluttery, and maybe like looking at somebody's pictures online being like, oh, that person is so, oh, and I can
Ah.
talk to them, oh. um
Mhm.
it was like that longing, that expression, that profound um that just profound wanting and
Mm.
yearning. And that was pretty good for me to realize. And that was, I show that as an example of, I think, a way, something that helped me feel somewhat resilient through that
Mm.
phase of intense, immediate, acute grief,
Yeah.
because it was like, wow, this is devastating and extremely painful, but also there is pleasure in it.
Mhm.
The pleasure of having that love, and the pleasure of whatever. I don't know. We need like a term like new relationship energy, except for like grief. I don't know what that would be, but yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And it is that line, that pain pleasure line in some ways. And grief is its own thing, but it's so part of the cycle,
Mhm.
right? I mean, I love the cycles and I love embracing them instead of fighting them, so that they can hold all that they do offer in that sacred alchemy of dying away and going back to the earth and becoming something in which new things can grow within to blossom, to sprout and blossom and bloom. And then over and over, and grief is part of that process. It's
Yeah,
part of that. Yeah. As is love. Yeah.
I love that.
So, how do we bring this back to consent and difficult reveals? We're talking about resilience. How important is it for us to make sure that we have the level of resilience that we need to speak the things that we want to say?
Ooh, how do we do that? Ooh, That's a big question.
Or how important is it?
Christina, the one place my brain is going is my brain is like, oh God, now I'm stressed out. Shoot, I have to like cultivate resilience before I can like say the thing that I want to say.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if there's a way, well, maybe this is like my hope for the world. My hope for the world is that we could just sort of feel in our bodies and be like, I don't know if I have the resilience for this. I don't know if I'm ready for this, but like the thing in me that wants to speak, the thing that in me that wants to be in presence, like I'm just gonna like pop it out.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question, actually.
Yeah, I think it does.
Okay.
I mean, how important is resilience in order to be able to speak? I don't know. It's personal, isn't it? How important do you want it to be?
Yeah.
How important is it for each of us to speak what we feel we need to speak?
Mm-hmm.
It's a value system almost, isn't it? I mean, my integrity, what my values are with where I think I should be using my voice, the information I'm quoting should be giving to others when it comes to consent. Someone else may think that their values around what needs to be said is very different, or what they want to hear is very different. Going back to earlier when we were talking about, these required reveals.
Yeah.
Yeah. The required reveals also may vary depending on the situation, right? If we're going into kink, are there required reveals? Maybe depending on the play, right? On the kink.
Sorry, I missed a word that you said. Maybe something about play?
Depending on what you're going into, what you're asking consent for, or what you're being asked for. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, no, I know some people who are like, before I'm going to play with you, like, we're going to do a little consent exercise. And like, if you can't tell me no, like, no way, we're not going to do this, which I think is very smart. Yeah, very smart. I mean, I feel like that one, there are checklists and, negotiation frameworks out there. There are many good ones. I love Midori's negotiation framework. And yeah, I think that one about, can you give me a yes? Can you give me a no? Can I understand, when you are giving me a yes and a no, or a maybe, or a slow down? Like if there's a should and a must for kink, I think that is the biggest one.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they're going to be more that are context dependent.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And that goes to capacity, right? Are you capable of saying yes? Are you capable of saying no?
Yeah. And okay, and that gets us back to rupture and repair and resiliency, because there are times in my life where I thought I was capable of saying yes. And like in retrospect, I'm like, I don't know, that was not an empowered consent. Like that may have been consent, but it was not empowered. So yeah, and I guess to return to the point about cycles, like I think a difficult reveal is part of a cycle. It requires a cycle, right? Because it's difficult, because like you were saying, like there's something in your body that's like, whoa, this could be a risky, or whoa, like I don't know if it's risk, but on some level, something about this is exposing, something about this is vulnerable. And
go ahead. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. And like that cycle needs to complete itself in some way. Like it will, right? Like maybe, maybe you're like me from many years ago and you would be like, oh, this thing needs to be revealed. And then you'd be like, oh, what thing? Oh, I forgot. No, everything's fine. Or maybe, I wish for everybody that, they have a little bit more of a fluid experience. Maybe the thing pops out. And then I think the ideal situation is whoever you're making the difficult reveal to is able to hold it in such a way that it's like, okay, I was afraid of this thing happening when I said that. but actually it's okay. Actually, we're handling it kind of like mature, responsible human beings
Yes.
who have compassion. But
Mhm.
and maybe that doesn't happen. Maybe it pops out, and maybe then there is like a
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, and I was going to say that as well. I mean, sometimes it feels like it's going to be a difficult reveal because of the current cultural narrative, right? There's dynamics and relationships that you are already established, so you have an awareness that speaking certain truths or speaking your truths to somebody may cause some kind of explosion in their reactivity, right? So there may be spaces where you already have that predetermined experience with this person, but often as well, there are spaces where we're creating a story about what will happen when we give information. And to be really careful with that, because often the stories we're creating about how others will react or how they will feel about things don't line up.
Yeah,
Right?
that's really true.
Yeah, and it's an ongoing unfolding awareness to learn how to speak our truth and give the information when we're afraid to speak it, right? And to be gentle with ourselves when it's hard.
Mhm.
And to maybe try to be gentle with others when it's difficult for them to speak to us, as much as we're capable of that,
Yeah.
you know? Um, and, Julia, you did say earlier, and I absolutely agree, not everything that feels difficult needs to be said. But when we're talking about consent,
Mhm.
I want to invite you to say more than you think you have to. I mean, personally, I would like to know more than less when it comes to me having the information to give my empowered consent or not.
Yeah.
I want choice. And I can't have full choice unless I have all the information to make my choice.
Certainly on a personal level, I'm right there with you. Like, even if
Mm,
it makes me like, freak out to hear something, I would much rather hear it.
right.
And that itself is like a really good meta discussion to have with a person where
Mm,
you're having consent discussions, because some people are like, no, don't, these are things I want to know. If there are things in this other category, like, do not tell me. It's certainly not the way I operate, but like there are people who do prefer things that way.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's great. I love that, right? Because that's also part of consent, isn't
Mhm.
it? Okay, great. I'm so happy you're giving me a lot of information, but quite honestly, I don't want all of that. So next time, some of that stuff is actually not what I want to know. That's not what I need to know, right? And that's part of the conversation. That's also consent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. How important is it for us to lay the foundation for others to speak to us, to be conscious of our response or reaction when
Mhm.
others are giving us their difficult reveals?
Yeah, my bias is like hella important. Um, yes. There's I don't know who says this, but there's this saying of like, um, um, speak so it's easy to hear you, and listen so it's easy to speak to you. And
Mm,
I definitely believe that that is something to aspire to, especially when it comes to consent conversations and any kind of intimacy. Honestly,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mm,
And something that I find quite useful there is to be able to say to like offer something to
mm,
help make it comfortable for other people or give people like an example of something. So rather than saying, uh, Christina, you can tell me anything. Rather than saying something like that.
I'm seeing sparkles and rainbows shoot out of your eyes,
Yeah.
Julia.
Like like, I'm not sure, like, how safe you feel. I mean, obviously, we know each other, but, like, if we didn't know each other all that well and I said that, I'm not sure that you would necessarily feel like, "Oh, I can tell Julia anything,
Right.
anything."
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
if I were, like, I don't know, let's maybe have an example. I don't know, what's something that we might be, like, negotiating and having a consent discussion around that you would feel comfortable with us using as an example right now?
Jeez.
How about, like, I don't know, a hand massage?
Mm. Yeah, I'll take that.
All right,
About
fantastic.
consent around hand massages.
Cool. Hey, 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 hey. Potentially kinky ones or not. We can talk about it. Anyway. So, right, so let's say, we're talking about maybe I'll give you a hand massage. Um, and rather than saying, "Christina, you can tell me anything about the hand massage," maybe it would be more useful if I were to say, um, I'm interested in giving you a hand massage and any number of things. Like, if I were you, I might be wondering, like, gee, is this person having an ulterior motive? Because, like, we barely know each other, and, like, what's up with that? And so if that's the case, like, I can totally clarify my motivation,
Mm.
or I can hear anything else, any other thoughts you have around that. And that's, one example.
Yeah.
Or just a simple, like, I'd love to offer you a hand massage. It would give me some pleasure. And if you're into it, that's awesome. And if you're not into it, I totally understand that too.
Mhm.
I think making, like, the no option explicit
Mhm.
as somebody who's making the offer, can
Mhm.
sometimes do a lot to making other people feel like, oh, it's actually safe. Because if I'm like, um, I don't know, would you like a glass of water? Pretty low stakes generally, unless you're like allergic to water.
That'd be
But
unfortunate.
right, right, right.
No, I
Luckily, not
hear
many
you.
people are, but but yeah, but if it's something more sensitive, like maybe you've already consented to the hand massage and I'm giving you a hand massage, and if I'm like, um, you know, you want me to press harder in that, like, that nice meaty area, like between your thumb and your forefinger, if I say it and I'm like that might make it a little bit harder for you to feel comfortable being like, no, actually, that's actually
Mhm.
already a little too hard. Um, and so if instead I say, like, "Oh, yeah, do you want me to, like, give you some more pressure there, or does that feel like enough pressure? Would you like less pressure or something
Mhm.
else?" Like,
Mhm.
just the act of stating, "Oh, there are many options." My brain is
Yeah.
I'm aware that there are many options,
Yeah.
therefore, I'm less likely to be like, "Oh, I
Mhm.
can't believe you didn't want more pressure.
Mhm.
I'm so offended."
Mhm.
It can be useful.
Yeah, that sounds great. I love that. I love what you said. You said so much, so I'm dropping into what came up for me. Here's an example. Another thing that would come for me with that may be useful is also to say something like, "Oh, Gina says they just got spotty power and going to try to log on."
Gigi! That makes me really happy.
Yeah. Okay, that was distracting, but I'm so happy for that distraction. Um, I find that the more I'm able to express my boundaries, my yeses, my nos, my maybes, the more I'm able to ask for the information that I need, the more it makes others also feel or offers others the permission to do the same with me.
Mhm.
So that feels like it lays that foundation as well, just from the get go of relationship, right? Um, when you were talking about the hand massage, I thought of something like a good example for laying the foundation is to, okay, so now we're doing a hand massage. Maybe I would love to still keep massaging your hand, but I want to do it near our genitals as I massage your hand. I'm gonna we're gonna take it a little kinkier. I'm not going to start moving your hand toward my genitals as I'm asking you, if that's okay, right?
That is a great, great example, because like we can do that sometimes, right? Without even intending to be, putting the cart before the horse.
Uh-huh.
Like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's a beautiful example.
So then another thought for me is, so now maybe we're talking about us being available for others to give their truth to, right? Their difficult reveals to. But what about on the other end? Oh, wait a second. JJ! Hi, gorgeous.
Hi, I'm so sorry about this.
Oh, no, I'm so happy to see you. Every little bit we get of you is a joy. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi. So everybody, Gina Garris. And, we're in the middle of talking about empowered consent and difficult reveals. Gigi, do you want to say just a little bit about yourself? Would that feel okay to you?
Yeah, thank you. Again, forgive the lateness of my arrival, but thank you for having me. I'm just a human who loves to help support people in loving themselves and creating more intimacy with themselves and with others. And that starts with the way that we communicate together.
Yum. Thank you. We were just talking about how important is it for us to hold space for others to speak their difficult reveals to us. And we were both kind of reflecting that it feels really important to try to hold that space. And also that it's not always easy to do so.
Yeah. One of my teachers once told me, exposure is this way to build capacity to hold space for others. So our own internal potential shock factor or wow factor can come into alignment. And I find that is helpful in the places and opportunities that we offer to hold space in, is to make sure that we feel that we have the capacity to hold.
And what would give us that capacity?
Well, I think it's conversations like this, honestly. It's continuing to have conversations and sharing stories. I'm a big proponent to share stories and talk about our shame and the stories that we feel are messy or embarrassing, or we might feel are like, I'm the only one who's ever experienced that. And I think the more that we can be in groups like this and witness other people holding other people's stories, but also witnessing how we show up or how we share our stories, I feel like that's how we help build our own capacity and then build, the capacity to receive other viewpoints and perspectives. And the more I think we can build our own capacity and help our clients or friends build their capacity, I feel like it's easier to hold someone else's story if we've had practice.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's permission giving as well, I believe.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. I was just saying something to that extent. And from my own experience, with lovers specifically, it used to be very difficult for me to ask for what the information I needed or to give my authentic consent for so many various reasons. And I realized that if I speak outside of the sexual experience beforehand, the things that may be difficult or the things that I want to know and how I want to be expressive during sex or during our intimacy, then that really helps me to be able to speak more my truth and give my consent. But what I've noticed is how much more it's helped my lovers also be able to speak to me. It's been this beautiful full circle experience where me speaking giving myself the support I need has also given them the support they need to do their difficult reveals or do their big asks, the things that may have been hard to say.
I agree with you 100%. I also think that the more vulnerable we are with ourselves and with our stories creates more permission for more vulnerability on their end as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So now if we have given a big reveal, we've said a big reveal, how responsible or how can we then show up, or how responsible are we to show up for another person's reaction or response to our reveals? And this is for both of you, right? And we're just talking.
Yeah, I mean, I can hop in. That I think is something that we can negotiate. And that's again where like the rupture repair stuff can get really useful. In an ideal world, of course, we are resourced enough to give the reveal and be like, and I'm holding myself in this, and this is how I would love, this is a response I would really love to hear. I hope to hear from you. And if you have a different response, a more challenging response, like I acknowledge your truth and I hold you and I respect you in that too. Like that's probably like an ideal kind of interaction. But sometimes that's not something that we can live up to, even if sometimes like the self-concept that we have doesn't match like where we really are. So I think that's a great thing if we could be like, I'm gonna make this reveal and I want to know your reaction to it, but this was really hard for me to say. And what I would really love is for you to just like send me some love right now, and then I want us to take some time apart, and then let's have like a phone call to talk about it later, or however. I mean, that would be
the negotiation aspect of that.
Yeah. So I think there are many ways to arrange that, and we don't have to, like, there are ways that would be nice to have it ideally go, and we don't have to feel like that's the only way. Like we can only make a difficult reveal if we are completely prepared with the bulging biceps to whatever anybody else has coming up.
Yes, exactly. We've been playing with bulging biceps and resiliency this whole talk, Gigi.
I love it so much. And just to that point, I mean, Julia, what you're bringing in is play. And I think that we can't, I mean, there's never an always and there's never a never. And we take ourselves so serious. And big reveals are often very serious. And putting serious, smushed on serious is really fucking serious. And so I love this resiliency of bringing in a little bit of humor when we're talking about big reveals, because I think that big reveals and humor have a place to weave together on one level to make things not as serious. And I also know that humor can trigger or activate humans also, right? Like this is such a tender thing because there's no one way.
Yeah.
And we're working with different humans with different nervous systems and different what I call emotional STDs, which is shame, trauma, and drama. And everyone is different. I just like to try and set everyone up to win. Like that's my thing of like I have something I'd like to talk about. I'm wondering what's a good time? How would you like to receive it? Where's a place that you'd like to receive it?
Mm-hmm.
So kind of setting container before we would even talk about it. I would call it setting up this container or a scene or an
Yeah.
agreement. That's the consent part, right? Like,
Right.
I'd like to share something feels really big to me. Maybe nothing to you, but feels big to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to set us all up to win.
Yeah.
Gigi, you're such a maestro at this. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And like, what a great way to get into, I don't know what the, terminology, what the right terminology would be, but like, I feel like that process of setting a container, of setting yourself and the other person up to win, of having the discussion, that's already like getting the system kind of like, oh, this is something we can have a back and forth about. This is something where we could be demonstrating care and respect for each other and for ourselves already as we build up to it. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Did you talk about like the pocket of what we think big reveals might be?
We did kind of talk about what are big reveals. I'd love to hear what your thoughts on what constitutes a big reveal.
No. It's so it's such a perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like, well, I work in the world of STIs and sexual health, so that type of stuff, anything to do with genital health, pregnancies, things like that tend to be big reveals. Something along the line in the queerness, LGBTQ world can be big reveals. An infidelity or a betrayal of some sort can be a big reveal.
A violation of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We also talked about, or I brought forward, that I wanted people to understand too, that a big reveal doesn't have to necessarily just be those big things. And that while those tend to be what we think about as, I'm quote unquoting, the big reveals, that whatever it is that really makes our body contract and makes our voice shut down may be a big reveal for us.
Ooh, I really like that.
Right. And so any of the awareness we're talking about building capacity or resilience or, the support that we need in order to be able to speak our truths and give our consent or not, or give our consent, that's around anything that is difficult for you to speak. Sometimes just revealing that you don't like your partner has always come up and kissed your neck your entire relationship and you don't really like it.
Mm-hmm.
That might feel like a really crazy big reveal for somebody.
Yeah, I love that part of the conversation. That's so true. Is that the size or the size of the reveal is also relative.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to InPowered Consent and these reveals, these big reveals, Julie and I talked earlier a little bit more, and I'd love to get your perspective as well. And then we can also roundtable it on what should be revealed. Are there shoulds in the big reveals?
I don't love to live in the world of should. I really, 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 really don't. I think that there's something around we're all just learning how to still communicate. And anytime you enter into a relationship with a new person, it's a whole new, like you just started school again. And I think it goes to, in some ways, relationship values, your sexual values, what's important to you. Are you a person who enjoys transparency? Are you a person who is private? Are you a person who has beliefs around that shouldn't be talked about with anyone unless it's a very specific, life partner? I think that our values comes into play more than shows. And what's important to us. What relationship are we creating? What, like, these are such juicy questions that I would long for anyone who's diving into any relationship would start to ask, whether it's a friendship or a platonic relationship, a cuddling relationship, a sexual relationship, a work relationship. It's like, what kind of a relationship and communication would we like to have in this relationship is a great place to start.
Totally. Yeah. And we talked earlier about how we may come forward with that, right? I might have my list of things that I feel are important to say to a new friend or lover or physician or whoever, whatever relationship it is. And yet that might not be all the information they think they need, or I might hear information from someone else and they think they're giving me all I need, but maybe that's not everything. Or maybe it's different with every person that I talk to. And so we can come with these ideas of what needs to be present, that we should be saying, but it really is this unfolding of an awareness of what happens in that relationship, in that moment, and what we're trying to create with each other as to what we want to bring forward. What about, and I'm kind of bringing it, circling back, Gigi, a couple things, because I just love your space in this conversation. I want to get your perspective on a couple things. Is that all right with you?
Yeah, I saw Julia had something to say. I want to just make sure that Julia's brought into that full loop.
Gigi, thank you. I did have an open mouth. Yeah, what came to mind hearing both of you speaking is you are both so good at the leadership element of, transforming what, we may or may not like to think of as I should into I am leading by living my values, by knowing like what the should is for me, which, blossoms from, I should into a flower of like possibility and like enacting what like we like in the world. And I think that that's such a beautiful example, a beautiful point, that when you proactively are able to be like, hey, this is how I want to be in the world. This is how I want to treat others. This is how I want to be treated. This is like this is the reality I want to embrace. That is just beautiful at helping other people join you in that, and also discover for themselves, well, what is the should that turns into a flower for me.
Yum. Thank you, Julia.
I'm thinking about the word should, and it's like I want to ask the question, who says I should? Right? It's like, I think that's a really fun internal dialogue, or if like, oh wow, I'm feeling like I should blah blah blah. It's like who's really shoulding? Who's really shoulding on that? Which brings me to like this idea or concept of, can we pause more? Can we pause before we make the inquiry, or can we pause before we react or have a response? Can we? There's an analogy, or WAIT, wait, why am I talking? Like, is there something to be said? Is this necessary? Is this useful? Those are really beautiful questions, I think, when it comes to big reveals. Maybe it's like, why am I revealing? Do I need external validation? Do I need this for my internal sense of self? Do I need to be seen? Do I need this to prevent conflict in the future? Do I need this to feel safe in this relationship? Those might be interesting curiosities around the big reveal and the why. Like, where is it coming from?
Is this information that is going to build the kind of relationship that we both agree that we're seeking?
Yeah.
And that comes to, I think that we haven't asked you in this, but that thread that everyone talks about, and I think you've defined empowered consent in past conversations, but that thread that so many of my guests talk about with empowered consent is that inner awareness, that ability to stop and dive in deeper to a higher knowing for ourselves, about where we are coming from. And I think what you bring forward of what is influencing our voice in this moment is really important.
Yeah, and I have curiosity around, have we given ourselves enough time and space to slow down, to listen? Because say I'm super stressed out because I have a new lover and I want to have the talk about genital health, but it makes me nervous. It's not even a reveal, it's just a conversation on one level. If I'm nervous about it and I haven't slowed down to just remember, like, genital health is important to me. I'm valuing my body. It's important to me who I share information with, or who I share my body with to share information with. That's important to me. I'm taking care of myself, and this is why it's important for me to have the conversation. If we can go back to like why it's important, I feel like slowing down gives us more empowerment in remembering when it might get wonky. When it might be like, oh, wow, I had no idea that would be received that way. Thank you. As I might inside be going like, ah! But if I have enough remembrance of the moment to take a deep breath and remember, oh, this is my body, right? So.
And that can be more difficult when it comes to what happens when we feel contracted or afraid to speak, when those reveals are difficult and our energy is like in this. And so it comes back maybe to that building capacity ahead of time, right? To be able to slow down in the moment and take the space, the spaciousness that our bodies need, that we need in order to tap into that awareness that you're talking about.
I think that's so beautiful. And like the space to allow that, what's a less militaristic army, that advisory board of whys, or that nurturing grove of whys within you to grow is so, I personally find that to be incredibly bracing. It's like, okay, I'm going into this with like a cloak of love wrapped around me because of those whys. And also, Gigi, before we were talking a little about like kind of like aftercare for big reveals, and like I think maybe I was talking about it as like scooping out like a place in yourself to catch you on the other side. And I feel like those whys that come up, like those are so good for catching you on the other side. Those are like beautiful parts to bring in for like, you did it, like massaging your shoulders afterward, like holding you in a big hug, being like, thank you, thank you. And I'm like, right on. No matter how it went, like, you did us proud and we love you.
I really love that. I love the support, making sure you have support and aftercare in place before you have it. I also love the idea for people who might feel that they get nervous or they forget their words to write it down, write the list of why this is important to me. I love the idea of celebrating, Julia, no matter the outcome. It's like, yes, I did the thing that was scary.
Yeah.
I did the thing that was scary. Yeah.
I love it too.
Something else I love to do with clients is to just role play. I also sometimes like to do worst case scenario, which is not for every nervous system. But worst case scenario, best case scenario, weirdest case scenario. I love all of those kind of role play things.
Mm-hmm.
But support is like the number one, I think.
Yeah, and we did cover some of that before, and I love you bringing forward what your aspect or your thoughts on support were. I mean, I think we were talking about support during power dynamics specifically. So I'd love to get some of your ideas. I think some of the things that we brought forward was the aftercare that Julie is talking about, right? What's your nervous system? What are you going to need to really care for yourself afterwards? We also talked about, people that you can bring into the space, maybe emails ahead of time or writing it down, like you mentioned, or practicing with people that feel safe to say things to, maybe singing it in your favorite tune and making it feel playful to your voice ahead of time, right? Things like that. Is there anything else you feel like we could add to that when it comes to building that capacity to speak?
Well, building the capacity to speak feels different than the support of just having the one human who believes in you. If there's a human that you have, and I want to be really mindful because not everyone has access to a coach or to a friend that they might believe will completely 100% hold them and believe in them. And I want to bring out possibility that there's so many humans out there, so many support groups, so many places that actually there are support. There are humans that would be willing to hold this. Right. But that to me is what I mean by support, is like, who's the person who's your biggest fan, who believes in you no matter what. And just being in communication with them, going into the thingy. I'm going to go do it. Check on me in an hour, that kind of support I feel like is invaluable to, so that you just know there's someone there.
Yeah, that feels good. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, go for it.
No, please, Julia.
Oh, you're so sweet. Internet lags, I tell you. But I love how you're talking about relationality, Gigi and Christina, like in the intimacy of it, because like difficult reveals are usually difficult because of relational space that exists, I think, including the ones I was talking about before when they're like within oneself. I'm a fan of the idea that we've got all sorts of like relational things happening within ourselves, and relational space is so healing and so supportive and so magical. So yeah, I almost feel like if there's like, in my mind, if there's like one big takeaway, it would be like, honor the relationality of these difficult reveals, and it is possible. I mean, I think that there's no replacement for other beings outside the actual self, but it is also true that one can cultivate and experience like a pretty profound thing with the loving nurturer within, or the celebratory accountability partner within.
I agree. Yeah, thank you for that.
I agree.
I love that. I want to just keep going, and yet we're really at time. And so I want to just bring it forward and ask, Gigi, you weren't here the whole time, but is there something that feels really important for you to let our viewers know about empowered consent and difficult reveals? And for you also, Julia, is there something you feel like that we didn't say in this space that you feel like is important to say, or that you want to underline and magnify before we get off?
I think one thing I'd like to say is that you, our listeners, and each of us here are worth living in our truth or living in the way in which we desire. And if that includes being heard, being witnessed, in any small reveal, that you are worth it. And doing the risky thing is sometimes way, way, way harder than what's on the other side. Not always. But would you be willing to be surprised? Would you be willing to be surprised at what's possible when you make the scary ask?
Beautiful. Thank you. I love that. That feels really yummy. Oh, Julia. Oh, tech is so funny. I go in and out with these with having really great availability and not. But I'm so happy that we got Julia's voice on here for so long. And if they pop back on, yay, they popped right back on.
Good.
Hi.
Sorry about that. That was weird.
It happens.
Yeah. But I loved what you were just saying, Gigi. Like, would you be willing to be surprised? I'm not sure what I missed after that. But
that's it. That was the gist.
Oh, so good. Yeah. I think like the sort of underline that I'm thinking of also has to do with truth. And it's like the truth can be held, and like you can hold the truth. And that includes all the levels of the truth, like the truth of like the thing that you want to reveal that's difficult, the truth that you feel like it's difficult, the truth that you're not sure if you should or not, if that happens to be a truth, the truth of all the ways you may be feeling about it, the truth that, maybe what you want to reveal is that you did something unethical, or the truth that you did something that doesn't match your concept of yourself and you're struggling with even reconciling the fact that has happened. Like all of these truths, or the truth that you feel really good and like it's really easy for you to ask for this thing that's difficult and hold those emotions and like be happy with and confident about however it's going to go. Like these are all various possible truths that may exist, and yeah, like you can hold all of these truths.
Beautiful. Thank you, Julia. I love that. And as I'm sitting here wanting to pause to think about what I want to underline, it feels very relevant that the pause is something to really underline. Thank you for bringing that forward, Gina. I am a huge fan of a beautiful pause. And I'm a big fan too of making things winnable. I like that you brought that forward as well. And want to really underline that to really make things playful when we can, make things gentle, be gentle with ourselves, to pause and take the spaciousness we need, and to get playful and winnable in ways that really help us to build that resiliency. Start saying things that are just slightly hard to say, but that feel so winnable. Like, let's start winning here. Let's really start knowing that we can live in the truth, that it feels in alignment with how we want to speak and how we want to relate. Yeah. Yum. Yeah. Gigi's kissing those biceps. Yeah. Oh, I wish we had so long, but I really hope to get you both back on a conversation again in the future. And Julia, big joy. Such a joy to have you in this space. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's a delight to hang out with you all.
And Gina, once again, you're here. I'm so glad for every moment that you show up. Thank you.
Thank you. And forgive me for my tardiness, but I'm so glad that it worked out to be here at List for this little bit.
I'm so happy that you showed up for every little moment. I'm just so happy to have you here. Did either of you want to give a little something about how people can work with you before we pop off? Does that feel important to you?
Yeah, I'll go.
Yeah, go for it, Gigi. I would feel great if you want to go first, Gigi.
I'll just say you can go to blisscoach.com, BLISSCOACH.com, and find me on all the ways of social media. And that's the best way to reach out to me and see if I'm doing anything. I have a couple of groups on Facebook, one with my partner Ephraim, In Bed with Gigi and E. There's a link on blisscoach.com to find it. I have a little sexual health and me shame discovery content group in Facebook also, and those would be ways that reach out. I love it when people really court me. So feel free on all the ways, and yeah.
Yay. Oh, that's so fun. And everybody, Gigi's information, the website is in the description above, and more about what Gigi does and a fuller description. So please go check that out. Go court you some Gigi. Yum. Thank you, Gina.
Oh, that's so cool. If you are interested in chatting with me to see if we might be a fit to do a little something together, you can email me at bigjoycoaching@gmail.com. And please note that I have a rather large number of emails recently, so it will take a little time for me to get back to you. But I love you all. I wish you the best. I hope everybody has profound growth and awesomeness in their experiences.
Yum. Thank you. Julia, would you mind putting that in the chat, bigjoycoaching@gmail.com? Because I don't think that was included in the bio description above, and I really want to make sure people have that.
Yeah, totally.
Nice. Thank you. And y'all know you can find me at embodiedempowerment.com, and that information is in the chat in the description above, as well as coming up here at 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. I'm doing a meetup group to watch party to watch the first episode of Sex, Love, and Goop together. We'll be pausing partway through and at the end to discuss and for me to answer any questions that I can answer for you. So find that meetup link in the description above if you want to come join. And that'll be every week for 6 weeks, except for the 26th of December. So it'll be every Sunday, 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And if you're interested in coaching, I do little percentage offers and gift offers at that meetup group. So go check it out because there'll be a lot there for you. All right. As always, everybody, what a joy to be in this space with you, all of you who watched and both of you who joined. Thank you so much. Have a gorgeous, beautiful, empowered day.
Bye. Thank you so much.